for me is a language. It is something that bridges the gap between emotions and feelings. Oftentimes, I think music can be an equalizer to bring people together. It can also be used as a weapon. It can be used to divide people who have strong opinions and such. But music's a big tool, and it's a big tool in my arsenal and things that I do professionally and recreationally. Specific genres, that's tough. That changes just about every day between genres. I currently play with the reggae band and I really enjoy it. It's a big love for me. It's a style of music that I really enjoyed as a young teen, and in my adulthood kind of paved the way to a lot of opportunities and experiences and working with people. And again, communicating with people on stage has been a really, really one of a kind of experience for me. And I've done that with reggae, but I've also done that with rock. I've done it with jazz. Done it with classical music when I was a young kid playing the violin. Done it when I was a little 6-year-old listening to my mom dance and play African drums. So it's a history, and music to me is an open mind should always be had when exploring music. I knew I wanted to be a music therapist when I was about 16, 17, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be able to pay my bills while also being able to play music. I also felt that it was sort of this field that was up and coming, had been around for a while, but I knew very little, and my peers knew very little about music therapy. But it was something that definitely caught my interest. The ability to work with people and work with others in sort of this humanistic way was really appealing. So yeah, for me, music therapy seemed the only natural route if I was going to go to college and pay that money. The best compliment I've gotten as a musician and as a music therapist has been that I'm able to help people find their voice. So what that means is kind of when you're working with people who have a tough time expressing their emotions or a tough time explaining their past trauma, music is a way where I can talk to somebody without using words. I can talk about things that may be really tough and challenging through music, through analyzing lyrics, through talking about how it's relevant to their life. And to me, that really helps people understand their backgrounds in a way that's not as threatening as something like talk therapy or something, like having a conversation, sitting down face to face, because it can be intimidating. So music is that weapon again that kind of makes you safe, and it makes you sort of immune to this idea of judgment. Me know when dies down. Me know when dies down. Me know when dies down. Me know when dies Life's mission would be to really figure out ways to spread what I do to everybody that I come across, right? If it's not a traditional music therapy session that I'm having with people, it's advocating for what it can do. And sometimes, there can be music therapy happening um, that's in a less clinical situation that can still have a very therapeutic benefits. And I think, working in the community and providing resources for people who don't necessarily have those resources, say insurance or things like environmental barriers and things like financial barriers. It's an important idea to bring that message and that healing to a community that needs it, arguably just as much, if not more, as people who are in a clinical setting. I wake up in the morning and I'm stoked to go to work. And I don't know how many people can say that. And that's been a drive and a passion for me, something I've wanted to do ever since I was a little kid, right? Because my mom worked really, really hard as a single mom. And she put food on the table, and it wasn't necessarily all the things that she wanted to do, but she did it. And I'm in this position where, like, because of that, I get to do the things that I do, and I get to be where I get to be, and I get to spread this message to people. So for me, that's really that kind of American dream idea, is being able to do what you want to do, and it pays the bills, and it becomes who you are in a way that is beneficial to your growth and other people's growth. I've been a certified therapist since October of 2020. So I've had a couple jobs that are outside of the music therapy world, but still found ways to kind of incorporate that either to kids in different residential programs in the Rochester City area, or other, more of a clinical setting like the psychiatric center where I work. I think, in this field, there is a type of person, that people, when they think music therapist, they think of a type of person. And for me, it's super important to break that mold. I went to school as, sort of feeling like an outlier, but it ended up being a great advantage in getting hired and working with the population that I work with. Because, it's like finding a therapist in any realm can be tricky, right? You have to identify with people that either have a similar background or ideally can understand where you're coming from in a way that is a little bit more interpersonal. So I'm fortunate enough to be working in an environment where I feel like those needs are met, and a lot of my clients are able to trust me and share things with me that maybe your average music therapist can't. So many crazy stories, those of which I'd like to share. I'll try to pick one. I have a story of a gentleman who can't put 2-3 words together, but every time I show up and I play the Beatles, he sings with me word for word, every lyric, every line, and there's a smile on his face the entire time. And that's what I'm talking about when I say music as a language and music as a bridge, because it's so important to understand different ways to connect with people that don't look traditional on paper, right? I mean, 95% of what you say is really what you're saying. There's body language, there's really how you listen, and if anything, being a therapist has taught me how to listen and appreciate what other people have, and not so subtle or not so obvious ways. I can't imagine doing other things. I don't know if it's something that will make me as happy as what I'm doing now. Fortunately, I'm blessed to be able to do have a career in music therapy and also have a career in music, and that makes me very happy. And I'm very lucky to be able to do that. I'm very lucky to be supported by my people in my work environment when I tell them that I'm doing a performance or going on tour, and have that flexibility. Because they value the concept of, music therapists are artists, music therapists are musicians, just like art therapists are artists and dance therapists are dancers. And I think to satisfy that inner child is kind of essential towards providing great therapy and great services. I'd like to see a continuation of acceptance of all cultures and all backgrounds and all ethnicities. And that's not just something that, happens overnight. And I think that we're getting there as a society, and we see the importance of what it means to have representation in this field, and have different styles of music be accepted as therapy. When I was in school, we're learning about the greats, like Beethoven and Mozart, and that music is genius, and it's always going to be genius. But there's also a genius that lies in jazz and blues and Americana music, and it's really important to access that in early intervention for music therapists, because I think that's a very important genre for people who you work with, right? Like the Beatles, for the gentleman I was working with, was huge, or working in soul music. or working in R&B music or bluegrass music even. It's really important to understand the history of our music as a nation, because it tells a story in a way that Mozart and Beethoven can certainly tell the story. But it's different in the sense that that's what the people we're listening to that I'm working with, that's what brings my patient back to reciting those lyrics to me when he can't put a sentence together. I think it's important to have representation in music therapy, culturally, ethically, ethnically as well. I think there's also the idea that there's so many different styles of music that are American, and it tells a story. It tells a story of civil rights, tells a story of struggle, it tells a story of pain, it tells a story of healing. You have the 1960s Woodstock era music, that's a very politically charged time, and you have blues music, very important music, traditionals being passed down through slavery. It's so important, and sometimes people don't realize what they're learning when they're learning it. And history is everywhere; it's all around us. So I think incorporating all these styles and musicians that have the backgrounds, fortunately that I was able to have, which is so diverse. Things like African drumming, things like reggae music, things like punk rock music. It's important to incorporate all those, because there's punk and reggae, and there's reggae and punk, and it all tells the same story in different ways. So it's really important to understand that therapists of the music variety should definitely consider keeping an open mind, and every piece of music has value. I'd like to continue to be a music therapist. Essentially, I would be spreading the good word of music and using my toolkit to become a better therapist. I'm always learning. I learn so much from the people I work with, and it's important to always have that desire, always remain teachable, and always remain open to ideas and concepts.